40th anniversary of Natalie Wood's mysterious death. Time is running out to confirm what really happened to the beloved actress on this luxury yacht.
For 30 years, Captain Dennis Davern told the same story. He said Natalie Wood slipped while tying a dinghy. He said it was an accident. He said Robert Wagner had nothing to do with it. Then, in 2011, something broke inside him. He admitted he lied. He said he heard them fighting. He said Wagner smashed a wine bottle and refused to call for help.
I think she was dead when she hit the water. She was unconscious, when she hits the water. They said there wasn't any water in her lungs.
He said he watched Natalie disappear and did nothing because he was scared. Now investigators call him credible. Now the case is open again. But the question everyone wants answered is simple. What really happened in those final hours on that yacht? And why did he protect Wagner for so long? Natalie Wood stepped onto the Splendor with a heart already carrying old fears. She had been afraid of dark water for as long as she could remember, and she never tried to hide it. She could not swim well, and she often spoke about how the ocean made her uneasy. Still, on November 27, 1981, just before Thanksgiving, she joined her husband Robert Wagner on his 60-foot yacht for a weekend trip to Catalina Island. Christopher Walken came along, and so did the captain, Dennis Davern. At first, the trip looked simple enough, almost like a short break from Hollywood. Yet as the night moved on, everything began to shift. By November 28th, after hours of drinking and rising tension, Natalie vanished from the yacht. Her body was found the next morning, November 29th, drifting about 500 yards from the Splendor. The report said drowning, but nothing felt that straightforward. The bruises on her body, the loud arguments, the fears she carried, and the silence that followed created a mystery that refuses to settle even today. Her marriage had always carried both warmth and storms. Robert Wagner had been a beloved TV star from heart to heart, and Natalie had fallen for him young. They married in 1957, split in 1962, then found their way back to each other in 1972. Even when they smiled for cameras, people close to them could feel the tension beneath the surface. Their love was real, but so were the arguments and the jealousy that kept rising between them. Wagner struggled whenever Natalie worked closely with other actors, and friends whispered about how their relationship lived on the edge far too often. During the Splendor trip, old emotions came back fast, especially with Walken on board. Wagner's shifting stories later only deepened suspicion. Investigators eventually labeled him a person of interest, and the marriage that once looked glamorous became the center of a tragedy that still raises questions. Christopher Walken walked onto the yacht on November 27th with the energy of someone rising in his career, fresh off his Oscar win for The Deer Hunter. The moment he stepped aboard, witnesses said the air tightened. Wagner seemed bothered almost instantly, watching Walken with a coldness that did not match the friendly purpose of the trip. Walken tried to keep the mood steady, but the atmosphere kept tilting. As the hours passed, the strained jokes and careful distance could not hide what was building. By the night of November 28th, Walken watched as Wood and Wagner argued, and he admitted later that he felt uncomfortable and stayed to the side. The weekend that was supposed to be calm slowly turned into something restless, and Walken's presence became one of the threads investigators kept following long after the night ended. All the while, Captain Dennis Davern watched everything quietly from the edges. He knew the couple better than most people did. He knew their good days and bad days, and he understood how quickly things could shift between them. At first, he repeated Wagner's version of events, telling police that the night had been an accident. But as years passed, something in him changed. In 2006, he helped write Goodbye, Natalie, Goodbye, Splendor, and in its pages, he admitted that he had lied. He claimed he had seen Wagner and Wood arguing at the back of the boat shortly before she disappeared. He said he believed Wagner was involved. His new version of the night forced the case to reopen in 2011 and pushed investigators to re-examine every detail. Because of him, a story that had once been called an accident became something far more unsettling. The problem was that no two people described the same night. Every voice on the Splendor gave a different version. Wagner had his story. Walken had his. Davern had several as the years went on. Even boaters nearby described different scenes, but almost all of them recalled raised voices and trouble. Some said Wagner sounded angry. Others said Natalie sounded terrified. The coroner found bruises that did not match a quiet slip into the water. New witnesses came forward in 2011 and talked about a fight on the back of the boat and screams for help that they never forgot. All of this pushed investigators to change her death certificate from accidental drowning to drowning and other undetermined factors. Every step forward revealed more confusion, and the truth kept slipping out of reach. Before the tragedy unfolded, the three actors had gone ashore in Avalon on November 28th. Witnesses in restaurants and bars watched the atmosphere change as the drinks kept coming. At first, everyone seemed relaxed, but slowly the mood began to sour. Davern later said that Wagner appeared irritated and uneasy, and his jealousy over Walken grew more visible by the minute. Staff who served them could feel the tension, and the short walk back to the Splendor carried that mood with them. The night no longer looked like a holiday weekend. It looked like something waiting to explode. According to Davern, Wagner's jealousy did not just simmer quietly, it rose. He said the weekend was filled with small sparks, and after the heavy drinking, those sparks grew into flames. Walken's friendship with Natalie, especially through their work on the film Brainstorm, seemed to push Wagner into deeper frustration. Davern described moments where the atmosphere felt too tight, too strained, as if everyone was tiptoeing around something that could break open at any second. Then the bottle shattered. Davern said Wagner grabbed a wine bottle and smashed it on the table, yelling a question that burned jealousy into every word. He remembered the shock on the faces around him. He remembered how the moment split the night apart. Investigators later confirmed that this incident had been described by multiple people, and it became one of the key moments that shaped the direction of the investigation. It was the kind of moment that sticks in a witness's mind for life. Wagner later tried to soften the story in his memoir. He said he broke the bottle during a conversation about careers, not jealousy. He said Natalie was not even in the room. His version was smoother, calmer, more controlled. But it did not match what Davern remembered, and it did not match the tone of the night described by others. His gentle retelling only raised more questions, especially when compared to the raw tension others described. Eventually, new witnesses stepped forward to support Davern's version. They talked about loud crashing sounds and raised voices late that night. They talked about seeing Wagner and Wood arguing on the back of the boat. Their stories matched Davern's and stood opposite Wagner's cleaner, quieter tale. These witnesses helped shift the investigation again, prompting authorities to label the case suspicious and point back toward Wagner. After the bottle shattered, Natalie fled to her stateroom in anger. The argument between Wagner and Walken kept going, and the captain stayed in the wheelhouse, trying to ignore what he heard. The energy on the yacht felt heavy. It felt like something pressing down on everyone. Hours later, Natalie would be gone, and everything would change. Davern later said that the fight moved to the back of the boat, fast and furious, loud enough that he turned up the music to drown it out. He said objects might have been thrown. He said he was scared. He said he did not intervene because he did not know what would happen if he stepped into the middle of it. His testimony gave investigators reason to believe the night had not been calm at all. Years later, the sheriff's department released new statements from people who had been near the yacht. They described yelling and crashing from the couple's room. Then they described a man and woman arguing outside on the deck. These voices were believed to be Wagner and Wood. The timeline these witnesses offered pushed the investigation into a new shape, one that contradicted the idea of a quiet night. Still, Wagner kept insisting his night had been peaceful. He said Natalie must have gone to tie up the dinghy. He said she must have fallen into the water by accident. But people who knew Natalie knew she would never have faced that dark water alone. Davern insisted the dinghy was secure and that she would never have gone near it willingly. Other boaters shattered the idea of silence. They claimed they heard a woman screaming for her life. They claimed they heard arguing that sounded violent and urgent. One woman said she could see figures on the back of the boat. Those screams painted a very different picture from the one Wagner gave. Investigators believed these ear witnesses, and because of them, the case was reopened as a possible homicide. In December 2024, a man who had been a teenage deckhand back in November 1981 finally spoke again about what he heard on the night Natalie Wood died. He said he was only 17 then, working near the yacht Splendor, and he can still hear the sound in his mind. A woman screaming for help from the direction of the yacht. The voice calling again and again. He believes the voice was Natalie. The last scream stayed with him for more than 40 years because it was full of fear that froze him in place. Earlier that same night, he had heard a heated argument. Natalie telling Robert Wagner that he would not talk to her in that manner. He tried to tell investigators in 2011, but no one listened to him. He walked away confused, wondering why they were not interested. And now he wants a grand jury to hear him while he is still alive. He believes there was foul play, and the truth was ignored long ago. He said the brushing off in 2011 was shocking. He expected that saying a woman was screaming for her life would matter to someone, yet his words were pushed aside. He could not understand why his memory was not taken seriously. The case had been labeled an accident very early, and anyone who had more to add felt there was no point coming forward. Silence spread because authorities closed the door before important voices even had a chance to speak. He thinks that delay has kept justice from Natalie, and he is tired of watching the years pass with no real answers. Another voice from that night has been steady for decades. A woman named Marilyn Wayne had been sleeping on a sailboat named Capricorn. It was only 80 to 90 feet from Splendor. Around 11 at night, she woke up because she heard a woman crying for help. Her boyfriend woke up too. Her young son also heard the same voice. She checked the time on her son's digital watch and saw it was just after 11. She said the water was dark and cold, and jumping in felt impossible. She could only listen as the voice continued to cry from the water near Splendor. Her memory does not fit any picture of a silent accident. Soon after, Marilyn received a warning. A message told her that if she cared about her life, she would stay quiet. She had worked at a stockbroker firm that handled business for Robert Wagner. The threat arrived only days after Natalie died. She tried to tell investigators what she heard, but said they never showed real interest in her story. She chose to keep speaking anyway. She does not plan to be quiet any longer because she believes hiding the truth only protects the wrong people. The stories of that deckhand and Marilyn moved together smoothly, even though they were told so far apart. Both describe a woman in the water calling for help. Both describe repeated cries for life. Both point to Splendor. These shared memories do not match any idea of a woman quietly slipping off a boat and disappearing without a sound. Their consistency adds weight to every unanswered question, especially after the death certificate was changed to drowning with other undetermined factors. Even investigators have said that some new witnesses appear credible and match what the yacht's skipper, Dennis Davern, had already said long before. During the search at first light on November 29 in 1981, a Coast Guard helicopter spotted Natalie's body, floating face down about 1 mile away from the boat. She wore a flannel nightgown, wool socks, and a red down jacket. The inflatable dinghy she used, named Prince Valiant, was found later on a nearby shore. No damage, no signs of a struggle. The engine was off. It sat in neutral. Her blood alcohol level was above the legal limit. She had always feared deep water, and she did not swim well. She was not wearing a life jacket. All of it raised simple questions that did not come with simple answers. The original autopsy said accidental drowning, yet the doctors also noted bruises on her arms and legs and along her body. One bruise stretched 4 inches along her right forearm. Others marked her left thigh. There were scratches on her legs and on her face. The report tried to explain them as something that happened while she tried to climb back into the dinghy or bumped against the boat. But no one could prove how they formed or exactly when they appeared. No one saved her fingernails for testing either, so it stayed unknown whether she tried to claw her way back in. Those marks brought doubt that never faded. Years passed, and the doubts only grew. In July 2012, the coroner's office changed the cause of death. No longer a simple accident, but drowning with other uncertain pieces. The statement said the way she entered the water was not clear. The investigation had been reopened the year before because of new witness accounts and those unexplained injuries. Detectives then told the coroner's office not to speak about it anymore. The case was not closed. It still waits for what has been missing. Investigators have said that the bruises could match a struggle that happened before she ever reached the water. The placement of injuries on her forearm and legs, along with scratches on the dinghy's hull, made some people believe things got physical. But the lack of saved evidence from her hands leaves a blank space where answers might have lived. Even so, the thought of a struggle has become a focus in the reopened investigation. Captain Dennis Davern held on to one story for nearly 30 years. He told it the same way every time, and it matched Robert Wagner's version so perfectly that police accepted it without hesitation. He said Natalie Wood must have slipped while trying to secure the dinghy. He said he heard a splash, saw the dinghy was gone, and found nothing suspicious about that night. He never mentioned an argument. He never hinted at any tension. His calm cooperation helped close the case in just 2 weeks, and people believed he was the loyal captain who witnessed a sad accident. For decades, that version drifted untouched, and Davern stayed quiet because silence felt safer than the truth he kept locked inside. Everything changed in 2011 when he finally said he had been lying. He went on television and said he had been scared. He admitted that he went along with Wagner's narrative to protect himself and avoid trouble. In his book, Goodbye, Natalie, Goodbye, Splendor, he explained how jealousy and alcohol had fueled a heated argument between Natalie and Wagner that night. He talked about hearing Wagner smash a wine bottle. He remembered the anger that pulsed through the cabin before Natalie disappeared. He said he tried to speak up in earlier years, but no one listened until the case reopened. His reversal shook the old version apart and forced people to see how different the night might have been. Suddenly, investigators wondered whether the accident theory had ever made sense at all. Davern's new account did not stop at the argument. He said Wagner refused to radio for help and insisted they wait. Hours passed before the Coast Guard was called. The search began around 3:30 in the morning, more than 3 hours after Natalie was last seen alive. Davern even said Wagner stopped him from turning on the yacht's searchlights, lights powerful enough to brighten the ocean around them. Wagner claimed Natalie might have taken the dinghy to shore for a drink, even though she feared dark water and would never wander into the night alone. Those delays and the strange refusal to use every possible tool became red flags that investigators could not ignore. Davern also claimed Wagner coached him on what to say once Natalie disappeared. He said Wagner told him to avoid talking about the fight or anything that might sound suspicious. He said he felt pressured, intimidated, and pushed into shaping a version that protected Wagner. Later interviews and his book show the weight of that regret, a regret that followed him for years. Investigators began wondering whether the first investigation had been shaped by fear, influence, and a desire to make the whole thing go away as quietly as possible. Law enforcement took Davern's new version seriously. They called it credible, especially after he passed a polygraph test administered by Howard Temple. New witnesses began stepping forward too. One woman on a nearby boat said she saw the argument and heard the yelling. She described Wagner as enraged and Natalie as intoxicated and distressed. These stories echoed Davern's account and pushed detectives to feel they were finally hearing what really happened. Every new detail added weight to the idea that the original investigation had barely scratched the surface. By November 2011, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department officially reopened the case. Nearly 30 years had passed. Media pressure grew. Davern confessed on live television that he lied in 1981, and he explained how Wagner had stopped him from calling for help or turning on the lights. The timing of the reopening lined up with the 30-year anniversary of Natalie's death and the airing of a special investigation on the case. The sheriff's office called the new information substantial, even though they still kept the accidental ruling in place until more evidence could be reviewed. The door to the past had finally been cracked open. As years passed, more pieces surfaced. In 2012, the coroner changed the cause of death from accidental drowning to drowning and other undetermined factors. By February 2018, after more than 100 new tips and many interviews, the sheriff's department publicly labeled her death suspicious. They now had new witness accounts describing yelling, crashing sounds, and arguments on the back deck. These stories painted a completely different sequence of events, one that suggested a fight may have happened before Natalie entered the water. That shift changed everything. These new witnesses described the couple fighting. They remembered a man and woman arguing on the back of the boat. They remembered the sounds of anger echoing across the water. One witness said Natalie appeared intoxicated, and Wagner kept trying to walk away before she fell to her knees. These details clashed with the smooth, simple story from 1981. Investigators said the new descriptions made them rethink the entire night and consider the possibility of a physical altercation. In 2018, the sheriff's department took the next step and named Robert Wagner a person of interest. He had refused every interview request since the case was reopened in 2011. Detectives said his explanations did not match the new accounts and kept changing over the years. Wagner denied everything, but the refusal to cooperate drew even more suspicion. He was not charged, but the spotlight stayed on him, waiting for answers he never gave. In 2024, new witnesses stepped forward again. One was a deckhand who said he overheard details about the fight and the moments before Natalie disappeared. Investigators described this as possibly the final chance to collect meaningful evidence. The case was over 40 years old, and time was running out. Still, with these new testimonies, they felt a small window might remain open for justice. Then came a shocking reveal in December 2024. Radar Online spoke to a man who claimed he had been only 17 on a nearby boat in 1981. Now 60, he said he heard Natalie screaming for help around 11 at night. He remembered her voice clearly. He said she cried out again and again, begging someone to help her. He also remembered an argument earlier that evening. He said he tried to tell investigators in 2011, but they ignored him. Now, after decades of silence, he wanted to testify under oath and tell everything he heard. His words added another voice to the night, one that had been lost for more than 40 years. Marty Rulli, who wrote Goodbye, Natalie, Goodbye, Splendor, prepared another book titled Natalie Wood and the Devil She Knew. She planned to include the full story of this new ear witness. She argued that police had dismissed important testimony as irrelevant and ignored patterns of abuse. She pointed to a dying woman in her 80s who once worked with Natalie. That woman said she witnessed Wagner manhandle Natalie in a dressing room decades earlier. Rulli believed the case had been mishandled from the start, and the new witness stories proved it needed a fresh look. Two more witnesses in 2024 added even more pressure. One said they heard yelling and crashing from the stateroom, and then an argument on the back of the boat. Another said they had lived next to the couple in the 1950s and remembered Natalie begging for shelter because Wagner had threatened to kill her. These accounts lined up with the bruises found on Natalie's body, bruises that pointed to a struggle rather than an accident. Every new detail pushed investigators to question the old narrative. By October 2025, lawyer Samuel Perroni filed a formal petition calling for a new inquest. He used the new ear witness, the additional testimonies, the bruises, and the contradictions to argue that the case deserved a fresh, independent review. He even questioned whether Christopher Walken's alibi was reliable. Perroni mentioned possible interference back in 1981 because of Wagner's connection to Frank Sinatra and the influence Sinatra held with the sheriff's office. His petition laid out a clear roadmap for reopening the case completely. Theories still circle the night. The original one said Natalie slipped while trying to secure the dinghy, hit her head, and tried to climb back using the dinghy's side. Her heavy parka could have dragged her under, and the cold water may have done the rest. That version fit the wound marks and the early ruling. Wagner later said she might have gone out to tie the dinghy after hearing it hit the boat. Physical evidence supports that scenario, but witness accounts have pushed another picture forward. Some say jealousy and alcohol played a darker role. Witnesses remembered a fight between Wagner and Christopher Walken. Wagner was jealous of Walken's connection with Natalie during the filming of Brainstorm. Davern said Wagner smashed a wine bottle and yelled at Walken, wanting to know what he was trying to do with his wife. The argument grew louder. Davern said he felt so uncomfortable he stepped away. Toxicology reports showed Natalie had a blood alcohol level of 0.12. Wagner had been drinking too. The psychology report suggested jealousy, rage, and alcohol might have mixed into something destructive.